FORA.tv. The world is thinking.
In the fall before the 2008 election, the editor of the 125-year-old publication Christian Century wrote, "In the theological arena, liberal has become such a negative term that few want to use it." And that's a discouraging conclusion from the journal that's probably been the most effective voice for liberal Christianity for over a century. Early in the 20th century, the magazine was a primary target of the new fundamentalist movement, and by mid-century, Billy Graham helped found a new magazine of evangelical conviction to oppose it, called Christianity Today. But now the editor of the Christian Century tells us that liberal Christianity is living in exile, and that liberal Christians prefer to use other words to describe themselves, like progressive. And that may be partly a result of the political implications of the word liberal. I happened to be listening to the radio in September 2008 when a conservative Christian named Mitt Romney was speaking to the Republican convention in support of John McCain and Sarah Palin. I counted more than a dozen times that he pejoratively used the word liberal or liberals. He claimed that liberals are responsible for awarding Guantanamo terrorists with constitutional rights, putting the interests of teachers' unions ahead of the needs of our children, stopping nuclear power plants and offshore drilling, making us more and more dependent on Middle Eastern tyrants, and replacing opportunity with dependence on government largesse. And there are a lot more ways that he insisted that liberals have allegedly harmed our country. Hearing Mitt Romney reminded me of how Michael Dukakis, the liberal governor of Massachusetts, was said to have lost the 1988 election to George H.W. Bush because he was shackled with the L word by Republicans. Worse, perhaps, he refused to defend what was positive about liberalism, even claiming in an interview with television commentator Ted Koppel 2 weeks before the election, "Ted, I'm not a liberal." A Washington Post article in early 2008 explained that Barack Obama was independently ranked as the most liberal United States senator in 2007. Then the Post author predicted that in the lead up to the election, he would keep trying to claim that he's post-partisan, not liberal, even though John McCain, in his own way, was post-partisan before the term was invented, often working across the aisle on important legislation, defying party orthodoxy far more than Obama had. The Washington Post article ended with these words: "The only Democrats who have won the White House in the last 4 decades have done so by running away from the liberal label, and Obama is certainly a student of history." By contrast, the Christian Century editor claimed that liberalism is an important thread in the fabric of our political history. He pointed out that the founders of the Republic were Enlightenment thinkers, and in large part philosophically and theologically liberal. The liberal impulse in American politics is responsible for Social Security, Medicaid and Medicare, Head Start and food stamps. Liberals, often in the face of fierce conservative opposition, have been the ones to guarantee equal rights, and they've made laws that help keep our food and automobiles safe and college education affordable. Liberal Christianity can point to the Old Testament prophets and to Jesus as the original political liberals. As mainstream a resource as the Encyclopedia Britannica describes political liberalism as the culmination of a development that goes back to the Hebrew prophets, the teaching of the pre-Socratic philosophers, and the Sermon on the Mount of Jesus. Jesus often asserted that socially despised tax collectors and prostitutes will enter the kingdom of God before esteemed religious leaders. The sinful who make spiritual progress take precedence over the religiously pure who won't recognize any authority but their own. Jesus was known for his commitments to the outcast and the marginalized in society, whom we must never forget have human potential. Jesus shows himself as tolerant of all sorts and conditions of people, as liberals should be, not doctrinal and dogmatic. Freedom, reason, progress, tolerance. Values to be proud of, not duck because they conjure up the L word. And let's not forget the dictionary definitions of liberal as synonymous with generous, bountiful, open-handed, munificent, and abundant. So what's the future of liberal Christianity? Of Christianity marked by commitments to freedom from authority, the use of reason, human progress, and tolerance toward others. There's no future if people aren't willing to stand up for these values and claim the label liberal as their own. Jesus was a liberal in substantial and important ways. Christians need to stand up for him in this respect. Why has the liberal voice been so muted in Christianity?